Hi, I'm Andy Acton.
And I'm Chris Strevens.
This is Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. So just before we start, if you are a first-time listener, thank you. Thank you very much
Yes,
indeed.
we
You're
love a
very
first-time
welcome
listener.
to join us.
A Dentology virgin.
If you've been here before, you know what's about to happen. But whether you're new or whether you've been here before, if you could follow us, that would be amazing, because it just means that when we send out new episodes to you, which is 7 o'clock every Monday morning,
Every Monday in our pajamas.
you'll get a notification, which would be good. So, yeah, what a fascinating conversation with Kunal Thakker.
It's a great story, isn't it? It's a real interesting. And yet again, another one with a little bit of failure.
Yeah.
A little bit of failure is the flame that ignited.
But also lots of the things I think kind of almost are those core guiding principles and behaviours that I believe is why he contributed to his success. Not led to it, but contributed to it. He learned quite early on in life, i.e. before he was 20. Lots of those things that have been instilled.
I love the fact that it's because he comes from big business as well. A bit like we thought, big business is great for systems and processes.
Yes.
And systems and processes mean you can repeat and repeat and repeat.
And also, I think that gives you the freedom to then take time to really double down on your team in terms of culture, training, the experience they have, the experience they can give patients. No, really valuable conversation.
It was very good.
Really good one. Really good one. How you doing? Are you well?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward for this chat.
Yes.
I think it should be quite good, really.
I think it's very exciting. He's been a hard man to track down because he's
elusive.
so busy.
He's like a MI5 spy.
Exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted. Today we've got a very special guest, and we've got Kunal Thakker joining us, who's the CEO and founder of Tooth Club.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard of Tooth Club, you will over the next hour, but you may well have seen the branding. It's a very, very distinctive
And you've
look.
probably been living under a rock.
Yes.
If you're in dentistry and you haven't heard of Tooth Club.
They're very good at marketing and making
Lots
noise.
of promotion.
Yes. Welcome, Kunal. How are you?
Hi, Andy. Hi, Chris.
How you doing?
Oh, looking forward to having this conversation.
Yeah.
For those of you who are just listening, Kunal has got a very attractive tree growing behind him.
Yes.
And this goes to serve to what I just said about the branding and the power. It's like you do it very well, and you've got a beautiful pink tree behind you, which ties in very nicely with your branding.
Yeah, my wife's a bit worried about all the pink in my life. I have to be honest with you. But you know what? If you're going to do it, as you said earlier, do it consistently, right? So
Yeah. That's right. That's what branding's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to the business side of things, and you've had quite a diverse business life, even before dentistry, and even more so for our audience in dentistry. Can we kind of just roll back to the beginning? Can you give us a sense of what your upbringing was like, what family life was like, where you lived, siblings? It's always nice to get a shape of who you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in East London. I actually spent most of my life in Ilford, kind of Essex, East London border, but really East London. And my parents had their own business. They ran shops, so news agents and a video shop at the time.
A
and that was good. It was.
We might need to explain to some of our younger viewers what a video shop is.
I know.
Yeah.
Most people stream
Exactly.
on Netflix, but back in the day, what we had to do is we had to go to a physical location, a shop, and then you would peruse what was like a library of videos. And then you would get your VHS cassette and you would check it out like a library book, and you take it home and you then watch the film and return it. And if you're talking about late, there was a late fee, wasn't there?
Yes,
Returning the video.
If based on my local one, it was so bloody irritating because you'd pick up a box and you'd take it to the counter and say, "Oh, that's not in."
Yeah, absolutely.
So were you the cool kid at school who always had watched the latest release?
No. I was the child labour that used to work on the shop of an evening or a Saturday, to be totally honest, and the weekends. But I loved it. I watched my parents growing up, working really hard, grafting really hard, and they made us work as well. We used to help out in the shop, and it was a real family business. And I quite enjoyed it. I think it's built some of my fondest memories. But definitely, I think my graft and my ability of kind of entrepreneurship definitely comes from those early years of seeing my parents working. So I guess did that. So grew up, and I absolutely hated going to the dentist as a child, and I think this is partly part of the Tooth Club story. But I had, and some of the dentists will know what this means, but I had to have Bimax surgery, so I had to have both my jaws broken. And it probably could have been avoided if I'd actually seen the dentist in the early years. But I used to tear up the appointments because I was just so petrified of going to the dentist. And I used to remember when I used to go to the dentist, horrible receptionists that looked down, wouldn't even look up. They used to keep the surgery door open, so you get that horrible drilling sound, disinfectant smell. And also, there was always toys at the back of this dental surgery that you never knew if you could play with. And that's my vivid imagination of going to the dentist. And I hate it. And you used to get like little postcards through to remind you of your appointment. So I'd get to the post first, so I could rip it up so mum wouldn't know that I had a dental appointment.
Where did your fear come from? What was it that worried you so much about going?
I just think it's such an awful thing to go to the dentist.
Terrible experience.
Yeah, it was just awful. The dentist was miserable. The staff were miserable. The place wasn't particularly kept very well. And funny enough, that dental practice still exists today, by the way, and it still looks exactly the same as it did 30 years ago.
Well, there you go. There's a challenge, isn't there, to acquire that practice and tooth club it at some point.
Andy, I'll drop you a note. FTA, if FTA can get me that practice, I'll buy it. And it's a high street location, so it kind of works, fits the mold. But it's been so from on there, I kind of went on to do in Asian families, like studying is really important. So my parents were very much about, you've got to pass the exams. Coming home and failing wasn't even an option. So I did my GCSEs, did really well. And then I went on to do biology, chemistry and maths. And I absolutely hated it. But I was kind of forced into it a little bit. Not directly forced into it, but the pressure was always there to go and do the sciences, go and be a doctor. Very good in an Indian family to go and be a doctor. And so I did exactly as a good Indian boy should do, go and do biology, chemistry, maths. Absolutely hated it, and I failed. I failed my first year of my A-levels, and I think that was a real milestone in my life because all my friends around me went into the second year of A-levels. I'd done really bad. I had to come home and show my parents these grades. It was just a really awful time. And but it also gave me a kick up the backside because I was like, I'm never going to do what someone else tells me to do. I need to do what I enjoy and where my passion lies. So I did accountancy, business, and I did drama, much to the horror of my parents, thinking that I've gone off the rail doing...
Yeah, a play in A-level, that is.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So that's exactly what they thought. So I did it, and I did, and I built a new group of friends, and I went on and I actually did really well in my A-levels in the end. But then it was like, I got all my university offers, and I had King's and I had Westminster, and I actually took Westminster, which wasn't considered as good as King's.
What did you apply to do?
So I applied to do business and finance, but
King's
actually did a course that was like maths and finance, so it wasn't quite business studies, and I didn't want to do that. So I put my foot down and said, I'm not going to King's, I'm going to Westminster. And they're like, my parents in particular, and my extended family were very much like, you're crazy, you can't turn down King's, you've got really good offers.
What's interesting, Kunal, listening to you talk, there's so many things that you kind of acquired as great life skills early on. So your parents gave you that real sense of what hard work is and what's important to dig in. You then had a little bit of failure in that you ballsed up year one of your A-levels. So, but what that then did is that then meant that you then started to take control of who you are and your destiny. But you're still quite young at this point, because by the sounds you're sort of 17, 18 years old. Those skills have been acquired very early on. Lots of people don't get those till perhaps 20s, 30s, even their 40s.
Never.
Yes. And I think, so with me, because at the time it felt my life was crumbling, right? As a 17-year-old, I felt like my life had crumbled. But it hadn't. And, I think it kind of builds a little bit of grit and resilience to go and, to fail. And actually my biggest life lessons have been from where I failed. And, so I went on to Westminster, did business and finance. And
so did you join the Amdram Society?
The Amdram, what's the Amdram Society?
Amateur dramatics, my friend.
Oh, no.
Get your acting out there. Did you go, I'm going to tread the boards?
I've left my drama career well and truly in the past, I tell you.
You haven't had a hankering to rejoin.
I've got a child now that's an absolute like star, and she you know, she's a star of her own show, and she's
Yeah,
got
yeah.
performances all the time. So I'm like, I know where that comes from. So, but yeah, so then went on and did did my degree, and but there was a little bit in me. There was always this thing that I kind of rebelled a bit, and I had something to prove. And coming from a Westminster background, the big going from at the time doing business and finance, everyone wanted to go into investment banking. It was kind of the hot thing to do. No one knew what an investment bank did, by the way. They just knew there's lots of money in it, and
They just made loads of money, big bonuses. Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. And
TV shows, sharp suits.
Yeah, we get a nice suit and a mobile phone. That'll do.
absolutely. And I went and I was like trying to apply for internships, and I got rejected from every single internship. And it's because they didn't hire on campus at Westminster. Westminster wasn't kind of their graded university. And also at the time, I don't know if they do UCAS points anymore, but I was shy of 2 points on the UCAS points. So I just got automatically filtered out and never got in. So, but that didn't stop me. So I went in and I basically went and networked. I went and met lots and lots of people. They did like these open evenings. I'd go to every single networking evening that there was going. And I got a chance in with HSBC, and they said, we'll give you a 1 week internship. No problem. We've got projects. I was like, great, I'm going to do it. And I kind of used that as leverage as to every time I spoke to anyone else. Oh, I'm doing an internship at HSBC. And it opened the door at Goldman Sachs, right? Yeah, because they're like, oh, if you've got an internship at HSBC, we should shortlist you.
You're like pre-qualified, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, and then every other thing, I've been shortlisted for an interview at Goldman Sachs. That then kind of opened the doors, and I basically ended up getting off. I got interviews at all the top investment banks. I ended up with 11 job offers at all the investment banks. And I took Goldman Sachs in the end. That was kind of the early career. And then when I got Goldman Sachs, I was like the golden child. Wow, you got Goldman Sachs, And it was at the time, it was 2005, and I started on a salary of £40,000, and it was unheard of for grads to start at that pay grade. So it was a huge. Like my parents were like very, very happy, very proud. But I think what it's taught me is there's always highs and lows, and actually, and even my parents have been. I love my parents to bits, and actually they drive me nuts too. But they've always been very, very supportive. So even the pressure was always from a nice place. But it's I got to a point in my life where I'm not going to people please. I can be a nice person, but I'm not just going to people please. I think that's one of the lessons that has come. So even now, there's times in my life where people, my parents and people around me approve of certain things, but I'm kind of focused on what I want to do. Yeah.
So were you still investment banking during the old lovely financial crash?
I was.
Oh,
yes.
that was exciting.
Some of the most exciting times, yeah. And I had viewing to seeing how much liquidity Goldman Sachs had at the time, and you had a green, amber, red status, and you never really even went into amber ever, and then this period of where you're like touching on red.
Yeah.
Blimmin' scary. So so did Goldman Sachs for 10 years. Absolutely loved it. Started as a grad, worked crazy hours, and then I had a child, and I realized I just can't keep working these hours. And my best friend's wife at the time wanted to set up a dental practice and saying, look, let's buy one. I don't know how to run the business, but I'm the dentist. I was like, great. And then she got pregnant with twins, and she then went on and said, I need to go and have a family. So I then had a full-time job working kind of 14 hours days at Goldman Sachs with a side hustle. Left Goldman Sachs to HSBC because it was kind of an easier role, and grew that dental business from 1 to 3 sites and sold it in 2019. And I left my job in banking, and the parents again, the family again, were like, you're crazy. My wife's actually very supportive, by the way. Actually, everyone else other than me and my wife were like, oh, you're crazy. You've got a really good job. You can't get a good job. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go and set up a new dental group. Absolutely. I'm going to do this, right? I want to be an entrepreneur. And then 6 weeks in, COVID, we're in lockdown. Should have told you should have kept your job. You should have kept a well-paid job. And then my old boss basically called me, and he said, he goes, do you want to come back and do some consultancy work? It's work from home. And I said, no, I'm enjoying doing banana bread. I've got a career break. And I really want to stay focused on the vision of building this group. So I was like, nothing was going to distract me, and I had money in the bank for once, right? Yeah, which was really nice.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually need to go and
Yeah.
take.
But
work.
also, I remember somebody saying a while ago about they were talking about like apes in the jungle as an analogy, and they were saying how the way they move around the jungle is they hold on to a vine, but to grab the next one, you've got to let go of the one you're holding on to. And they were saying that is kind of a bit like business life and entrepreneurship, in that if you just keep holding on to the thing you've got, you just swing backwards and forwards.
yeah.
You don't go anywhere. But if you let go, you
Yeah.
can then grab something else. And if you're doing such extraordinary hours investment banking, there isn't really any capacity to do anything else well.
Yeah.
You can do it as a site. So Chris and I were in a similar situation. We worked in banking. We bought Frank Taylor Associates back in 2000.
Everyone thought we were nuts.
Yeah. People, one, everybody thought we were nuts, and two, for us, for a period of time, it was a side hustle. We continued to work in the city, and we had this business. But as the weeks become months, you realise that you're probably doing neither particularly well.
Definitely.
And if you double down on the thing you're passionate about, suddenly it starts to blow up, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's quite scary taking that jump, right, from a
For sure.
secure salary.
Yeah.
Benefits,
and
all that
similar
sort of stuff.
situations. At the time, Chris had young children. I had young children. You were starting a family there. There were lots of things that would have suggested it didn't make enormous sense.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you believe in it,
We never saw it as a risk, did we? Which I think was quite. People say to our friends, it's a terrible risk, and we were like, well, we thought it was always going to work, so we didn't really think it was a risk. It's quite an interesting one.
Yeah. But also the things you talked
because we're
about.
stupid.
Are you familiar with the book by Bronnie Ware? So Bronnie Ware is a palliative care nurse in Australia, and she's written a book which is The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And basically, she spoke to people in their later years in life and said to them, like, what are the things that you regret? Now you've got all this experience of life. And the resounding thing that came out for most of them was they felt they lived a life to please other people and not to be the life that they wanted to live. And what you said about you can still be kind and nice, but you don't have to people please, kind of captures that. You're saying, like, it's my life and I'm going to live it the way that suits me, and it might not suit everybody, but it's not your life, it's my life.
It wasn't investing in Apple at an early stage and buying a flat in a Barbican.
No. So the banking how did the banking world set you up to create a dental group? What were the core things that world taught you, or did you basically just do the complete opposite?
No, it taught me so much. I should have left banking about 5 years before I did, by the way. That's one of my things. But actually, it taught me a lot. It taught me about business is more than about one person. Certainly in my group, I often get a lot of praise for what I've done at Tooth Club. Actually, it's my team. I've got an incredible team that are passionate about the brand, that are driving it forward, are constantly thinking about how we can get better. And I think having that and being able to leverage the skills of delegation, trusting others, systems and processes.
Processes.
It's all about systems and processes, right? In Goldman's, you don't have key man dependencies. You have systems and processes. And I think it's the same in Tooth Club. We are all about, we're system and process driven. And that's ultimately been why we've been able to grow so fast. And we've been able, we've come through challenges. But and it's also that recognition that when you've got challenges, normally because something's broken your processes. So it's about being able to go back. But actually, one of the biggest skills that I've kind of transferred over is at Goldman Sachs. I actually helped open their Bangalore office. So an office in India, and it was the first start of them offshoring, and they've called it outsourcing because it was their people, their culture, just in another country. So offshoring out to India. And I went on that journey. In fact, I was one of the ones that picked up the first set of keys to their offices in India. Now they've got 3,000 people there. But I've actually done very, very identical thing at Tooth Club. So Tooth Club, our head office and support centre, as we like to call them, are all based in India and in Bangalore. And it's been amazing, right? Being able to set up a team out there has been not only cost efficient, but it's been the amount of talent that we've been able to get out there is phenomenal. The loyalty, and so we now have a team of 25 people in our Bangalore office doing HR. We've got dentists. We've got 4 dentists that work for us in India, and all they're doing is compliance audits, floor walks, CQC, We've got HR out there, we've got a finance team out there. So actually a really, really good support centre. And why it's given us kind of the leverage is we just couldn't afford to have that support in the UK. So our practices have phenomenal support and are able to focus on patient care because we've got this back office team that are my team, by the way. I didn't outsource. It's not outsourced. I looked at the outsourcing option. I chose to hire people that are my team. I embraced into the culture of Tooth Club in another country.
Makes sense.
And I've seen you go out and visit them as well. I've seen pictures of you out visiting your team. So it very much does feel like they're your team out there as opposed to it's just people who do work for us over there.
Absolutely. And even things like the awards night. So we have a Tooth Club awards night, annual night. Obviously we can't fly the whole team over, but we're taking key people and flying them over, but they're also having their own awards ceremonies, and they'll be going out for dinner that evening.
Oh, sweet.
Just so that they feel part of it, and we've got some video set up so they can virtually watch in if they want to, because it's probably going to be late in their day.
A bit of time difference.
Yes, exactly. But the idea is we try and keep them as connected to the culture, values, business updates, what we're doing here, how they're growing, and how they're adding value. And and what I've been most impressed about is how our practice teams have kind of buddied up with them and really taken them on the journey of kind of ensuring that they understand what happens at practice level. But equally, our teams are reliant on them now. They need those teams in India to do their job effectively. So it's been a real success. And even our Instagram and our, if you message us on Instagram, right, you get a response from us from 6 a.m. in the morning till 10 p.m. at night. And it's a response within 15 minutes. And that is all done out of India. And it's a shift pattern that works out there. And it's been really, really good and has been a real strength. And where a lot of other groups have been looking at AI, using bots for their social media chats. Personally, it's something I really don't like. I actually, I think what gives us a competitive edge on social media is the fact that you're going to get a real human, give you a real human response and book you in within 15 minutes of you sending us a message between 6 a.m. and 10
I think you can tell. Chris and I recently went to a conference over in Orlando, and there were a lot of people there talking about like maximising AI and technology.
Yeah.
And one of the guys that spoke there was a chap called Duncan Wardle, who was the ex-head of innovation and creativity of Disney. And he was talking about...
Great job title.
Oh, lovely job title. But he was talking about the emotions of humans and how we work, and linking that back to AI. I think AI has a place for sure.
It does.
But I think when as humans we interact with a human, we feel it differently.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in a world like healthcare, where care is integral to that very word, you want to feel comfortable, and particularly linking that back to your own initial experience of dentistry. You know that people will be nervous, or there's an anxiety, or they're about to spend potentially quite a lot of money on something which is personal to them. They want to make sure that they can tick every box. So having people, as opposed to delegating that down to a piece of technology, I think it's really a really smart thing to do.
Definitely.
And it kind of bucks the trend, because most people are trying to automate everything.
Trying to save money. That's what they're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I do believe there's a place for AI, and we're constantly looking at the technology in our own business, saying how can we do this better, and what tools are there out there. And actually, most people have probably heard of things like Voice Stack, right? Yeah. Absolutely incredible system, I think. And it's something we're looking at. We've not gone live with it yet, but it's something we're looking at. And that for me is kind of the AI I want in my business, right?
Yeah. Is your reception team still UK based?
No. So we have patient coordinators that sit in the UK. So every practice, you're welcomed by a patient coordinator.
Yeah.
But one of the things I talked about earlier was the fact that I had this anxiety of going to the dentist, where you had someone that just looked down, the receptionist didn't really engage with you. So sorry. I don't know. Can you hear the fire alarm?
We can hear the fire alarm. This is real business. This is what real life's like.
It's a test.
It's fine. It's fine. We can carry on.
Yeah.
It was a test.
As long as there's no flames from behind you, we're all right.
No, exactly.
Disappearing smoke.
So this whole receptionist concept really, really annoyed me, because when you've got a patient waiting nervously, right? Yeah. I want my team to be engaging with them. I don't want them to be answering a phone. I don't want them to be doing lab work. And all these things are really important operational processes, but they need to be done behind the scenes. They don't need to be done
on the desk.
So I basically removed all of our inbound phones out from the UK. So so we have a patient experience hub in South Africa that answer all the inbound calls. And why that's and it means our practice teams can really focus on the patients in front of them. And it is overwhelming. I've worked on reception myself. Every year I'll go and spend some time on reception, just so I stay connected to what it's like. And particularly in UDA season in our practice in Ipswich, we don't do much NHS, but that particular one's got NHS, and it's hard. You know, you've got patients in front of you, you've got the phone going, you've got the dentist asking, you've got lab work. It's awful. You've not got time to speak to the patient. So we took out the phones, and that freed up a ton of time for our nurses, our reception staff to really engage with patients. And it meant we could really script out the patient journey at reception, which I think people talk about having a patient journey, but don't necessarily go to the extent of actually scripting how you talk to people, how you talk to different people.
Yeah, designing that's how.
So we've got and that's been another real big success, right? I've never done it in South Africa.
Why did you choose South Africa when you had a team in India?
Do you know, it was really around the communication skills, okay? Right. So if you've got a patient and the perception of someone calling the practice and being able to have a call, and I think there's, you know, the English in my team in India is brilliant, but I think there is a legacy perception of a strong accent, not quite being able to understand. So what we did is we said, well, actually, do you know what? We want to keep our India team really focused on the support centre side of things. Also, from a timing perspective and an operating hour perspective, Johannesburg, I mean, they're literally 1 hour ahead of us. So it kind of worked really well. So we split it out. And so originally it was just inbound. We're now doing all of our outbound recalls happen out there. So recalling patients. We do recruitment out there. And what else do we do out there? And debt collection. So, and it works really, really well. Really skilled talent pool out there. We've got an office, got an amazing operations manager out there that runs it for us as well. So try and get out there as well as frequently as we can. But we try as much as we will get out there kind of once a quarter amongst the management team. But we've got really good in both places, head of operations in both, and we're really trying to give them the ownership of running their offices. And when we're out there, it's more of us doing a nice kind of.
You have to just think about getting divisions in Mauritius or the Maldives or somewhere like that. As well.
I know, exactly.
I'd be very up for coming to inspect that facility with you if it was needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Tooth Club Maldives. I keep getting Tooth Club Dubai. Everyone keeps saying you need to go to Dubai, and my wife will make me move out there. So.
It's funny on the Dubai thing at the moment. There's so much chat around it, but I saw something that was quite insightful, and someone was saying that you know, over there it's a very low tax regime, and they were talking about it. But somebody made a comment, I'd never really thought about it, but how expensive things are in Dubai.
Really?
So whilst the earnings are high, and it took me back to, we had some friends who moved to Australia many years ago, and it was similar there, in that whilst their earnings were higher, a loaf of bread was £3 or £4. So the cost of living was higher, even though the earnings were higher.
I've got friends out there, and I asked them, because I was out there in December, and I asked them the exact same question. I was like, it's so expensive. And they're like, well, actually, that's because you're staying kind of in like Mayfair, right? Yeah, you know, if you were staying, you know, in kind of the more suburbs or some of the more surrounding areas, you'd go to your local shopping mall. You wouldn't be in Dubai mall buying your loaf of bread. And they're like, it's a big price difference. So they were actually saying, so food, petrol, all of that kind of stuff was cheaper. But what was more expensive was the luxuries. I think also home help, all of that was a lot more cost effective than it is here. So what they were paying on tax, I think they're essentially paying on luxuries, is the way it was sold.
Well, if you've got to spend it on something, why not luxuries?
I don't go to Dubai to live in the suburbs, though, do you?
No.
But I love London, right? So I know a lot of people moving out there. You know, I've heard the same thing about tax efficiency. My wife would love to move out there, the climate. But I love London. I just love. There's something, and I go to Dubai quite a lot actually. But when I come home, I'm glad to be home because it's home.
Absolutely. What things do you obsess about when you're scaling a business? Because you're doing incredibly well. You know, you're adding new sites on a regular basis. You've got your offshore teams. So what are the things that keep you up at night when you're trying to go through this sort of growth phase?
People. Honestly, it's people and money because cash flow is important, but generally it's people. Do we have the right people in the right team, in the right place at the right time? Do they understand our culture? And this is my biggest thing. And I actually had our management team in yesterday in the office, and I said, I can't be the only one now constantly talk about culture. Everyone talking about culture, because there's so many new people coming in. It's scary, right? I'm losing my baby, you know, and it's I'm losing my baby. It's becoming bigger, and it's exciting.
Not careful, you get dilution.
Yeah, but there's something very nice about keeping your baby a baby, and having control. So really around people that we bring into the business, and it's so important to me. And I'll give you an example, right? I don't do many acquisitions. I did 2 acquisitions. One was a phenomenal success, and one was an absolute car crash. And when I I say it was a car crash because of the way we incorporated that practice into the business. It's taken us 2 years now, and it is now a success. And I'm so proud of it because it's got such an amazing team in there that have kind of helped deliver the change and got it back to where I bought it. And I guess the people element is the example I was saying is I bought this practice and I got rid of the principal because he was an absolute, I can't say it, right? Hey, bleep, bleep, bleep. And he just didn't fit into the culture of our business. And he was the kind of person that slams a surgery door in a nurse's face. He was arrogant. He was rude to reception, you know, came in demanding. You know, we had a patient car park and he was like, no, that's my car park. I'm parking my car there. So what about the old disabled lady that needs parking outside, right? Yeah, you're young and fit, right? Yeah. And there's parking 10 seconds away. It wasn't like there was no parking.
Yeah.
It's literally a 10-second walk. And he was a big revenue earner for us. He was a massive revenue earner. And I removed him from the business. And it hurt us financially. But do I regret that decision? Absolutely not. The best
Makes
thing
a statement to the team, though, I think.
100%. 100%. You will not be in my business slamming a cupboard door in anyone's face. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it to anyone. So, you know, why would anyone else in this business do it?
You're a C.
Yeah.
So what worries me as I grow is really about people, making sure we've got the right people. They're trained to do their jobs, you know, and that we don't bring in any bad eggs, but equally when we bring in good eggs, we're kind of getting them to adapt and appreciate the culture of what our business looks like. And recruitment, I think in the industry is really hard, and everyone say recruitment's really hard. I will not hire anyone that does not fit our culture. Don't care how hard recruitment is. You know,
have you got to the stage yet where the business has outgrown some of the people? So in the early days in business, you kind of take people in and they're good for a moment in time, but then quite often a business kind of grows and moves on and evolves. And those people, they're not bad people, but they're just not fit for the business yet. Have you got to that stage yet?
Andy, you have touched on a real raw topic. Yes. Yes.
It's awkward, isn't it?
It is. It's really awkward.
It's difficult.
And I'm actually in the middle of it right now. And it's really hard. People that have really done.
They're not bad people.
They're not bad people.
The business has moved on, perhaps beyond their level of skill.
Yeah, and you know, and I'm really honest about this. And I've always been honest about it to my management team. You know, it's a journey, and we're all going to get off the bus at some point, including me, right? Yeah. You know, it's just when that point comes. But it is really hard because when you know people have given your business blood, sweat, and tears, you really, really appreciate it. But you have to, you know, I don't see myself as the owner of this business. I see myself as I've got a role in this business. I've got a job in this business, and we have to look after and protect this business. Huge amount of responsibility. You know, we've got 300 people in the business, so I feel very responsible for 300 people's rent, mortgages, bills. So we have to navigate this business in the right way. And I guess I'm going through it right now, so it's quite a raw topic. And without giving away the specifics, do you know what? It's just to do it with kindness.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be nice. I'm not trying to, you know, be someone's best friend. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it with kindness. If I can be really kind in my behaviour, in the way I do it, so that includes, you know, ensuring a little bit of financial reward on the, you know, that's what will happen. You know, if it means, you know, securing good reference, if it means using some of my contacts to find them a role, absolutely going to do it. It is really, really, really hard. But
it's
the right thing for the business at the right time.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think in a year's time, if I look back, will I think I've made the right decision? I do. But
I think if you lead with kindness, you can never be wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it any easier, but at least it. And also, I think for the
people, everybody's friend.
No, and I think for the people who stay behind, it's important as well.
Yeah.
Because they can see that, you know, you do things right, regardless of how difficult and awkward that situation is. You're quite a rare breed because as a non-dentist, as the owner of a dental group, you fall into quite a small category. Would you say that's been a blessing or a curse in terms of trying to get things moved forward as a non-dentist?
Do you know, I see it as a bit of both, to be honest. I'm always really nervous when I talk to other dentists or dental owners that are dentists. So, I'm in a WhatsApp group, and I'm always very nervous as the non-dentist kind of giving an opinion. Like, these guys are really smart. They've done 5 years at, in a BDS degree, most at King's, gone on and done probably masters, way more educated and qualified than I am. But I do see, because I see the world differently, and I always see things through a patient's perspective. I don't ever see it through a dentist's perspective or a clinician perspective. I say, how does the patient perceive it? I think that kind of puts me in a different position. I also think I've kind of been taught through my career how to manage people, how to speak to people, how to motivate people. So I can go and I can talk to a dentist, I can talk to a nurse, I can talk to a receptionist, and I feel like I can get on their wavelength. I feel like I've kind of learned that process through working in the shop as a child, through Goldman Sachs. So I've kind of learned that hack, and I do feel, I think that, dentists that have gone on to grow a group, I think that challenge is probably a little bit harder because they're so good clinically, but probably haven't had that same skill. So yeah, it's a curse and a blessing, but I guess from a marketing perspective, I think I see the world very differently to dentists.
You have a different lens, I think.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, personally, I think it's more of a blessing than a curse, because I always take the view that there's enough people in a dental practice that understand dentistry. And arguably, it doesn't need another person from the dental side.
You don't need to be a clinician, do you?
No.
You need to understand other bits.
And do you know what? It's the classic thing, right? Yeah, if I hire good clinicians, and I have done, I've always hired really, really good dentists that have helped and taught me everything. In my first dental practice, I didn't know what composite was, right? Yeah, and I had a dentist that sat down and explained the difference between amalgam and composite, and I was like, right, got it, right? Yeah, no one's ever had to teach me that again. And I'm also like trying to understand it as a patient. How would you explain amalgam versus composite to a patient? So it's a different. And so hiring good people, I think, is key.
Cool. When you first came into dentistry, who was kind to you?
Gary Chapman.
Good old Gary.
Portman, yeah. I have a lot of love for Gary. And everyone always thinks I'm going to sell to Portman. Look, they're going to be at the bidding table when that time comes, right? They're not, there's no early wins here if Gary's listening. But I love Gary. And I do.
He'll have retired by then.
He's exactly. He's a really good guy, really good human. But he actually, he wasn't nice to me. He was kind to me. He actually taught me a lot about business. And he came to look at one of my practices in the early days. And this was at Tooth Doctor. And he came upstairs. It was on a high street, but it was on a first floor. And he walked in and he said, "Look, I can't buy this, but Kunal, do you know what? Move it downstairs, onto the high street, and you'll double your turnover." So I went and did exactly that. I went and built it on the high street, and I quadrupled my turnover. And then today, I've built a group of dental practices, all high street location.
Yeah, footfall.
Using that principle.
Right, yeah, and and it worked, and it worked so well. And I built up the social media, so that's how I used to get the patients through upstairs, but we really never got it through the footfall. So we kind of leveraged both, and that was for us was what worked really well. Was kind of the golden recipe, actually having a combination of both, and patient experience. By the way, I think that's really important. So so that's what happened. So when I did that, so every time since I've done that, and it's a recipe that works. And but he was really kind to me, and even today, I've caught not so much recently, but in the early days of Tooth Club, I call him up and say, "How much should I be paying on rent?" And he's like 5% of turnover, or less than 5% of turnover. I was like, great, just nuggets like that. Having someone at the end of the phone that you can call that isn't going to judge you. I mean, he may have an end goal in mind, but there's no immediate benefit to him, but he's willing to pick up the phone and help me. So
good advice is good advice.
He's a good guy. He is a good guy.
And there's lots. I think there's so many good people in this industry. I think it's a really, really beautiful industry to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
When we go to industry events, you meet people, and it's such a nice networking opportunity. Not only do you talk about business, but you also, you build friendships with these people. And we now have a group, a WhatsApp group of all the non-private equity backed dental groups, and it's a really nice supportive group. There isn't any bitching, there isn't any bad mouthing, there isn't any aggressive competition, right? It's actually, how can I help you? Oh, I've used this product, it's working really well, you should try it. It's trying to, there's a real win-win relationship there. And I think that's a really nice evolution, actually.
But also, I think from a market perspective, it's important because dentistry needs support in various guises, and one of those is money.
Yeah.
So if, as a profession, the profession are working together to all get better and all grow and all deliver better outcomes, that will get more attention from the people that we need.
For the better of the profession.
Whether
industry.
it's the banks, private equity, venture guys, whoever it might be, because you need a flow of money in at the top end for any profession to grow. So it's lovely to hear that the people who are owning money in those groups are collaborating and working together to help improve one another's businesses.
When one of you fails,
yes,
well, as in a big failure, it affects everybody else.
Oh, the ripple
we see the banks instantly sort of like, whoa, hello.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, really good point, actually. Like where you fail, right now, I'm looking for an industry win. I'm looking for a real success story in the PE world, in the acquisition space, because that will then boost the market. Kind of suppressed a little bit. I particularly don't like people playing down the market. You value your business at what it is. Yes, there's going to be multiples. You can't control that multiple.
No.
But we shouldn't be playing down the value of our businesses and things that are really good about our businesses. I strongly believe dental healthcare is such a strong industry that people want to invest in. Really good income. It's a really good business stream. So yes, we're going through a cycle, and a bit like the Lehmans and the credit crunch, you go through a cycle, we come back out, right? Unfortunately, I feel like old enough now to say it, right? But we've been through that cycle, I've seen it. So we will come through this cycle in the same way. So really control yours. So I do think that actually, if someone in the industry fails, actually it's not a good story. Actually,
No, it's not.
It's bad for everybody. It's bad for everybody. And it's that thing, isn't it? I remember somebody describing that kind of success a bit like stars in the sky. Imagine if there was only one success, so you only had one star in the sky. How dark the sky would be. The sky is so pretty because there's thousands and billions of stars. So everybody can do well, but it takes a particular outlook and mindset to support other people and not see them as being a competitor. And we can all do well. 100%.
And even like when people talk to me about squats, I'm always happy to share how I do my squats. What's important in the squat journey. And I'm doing something with FMC at the moment on short videos because I don't feel threatened by someone else opening a squat. Actually, I love it. I love to see what they've done. I'd love to see what have you done different, right? Because we can all learn, right? And equally, hopefully, they can learn from some of my mistakes and not make mistakes, but also some of the good stuff we do. So I think actually, and you know what? If the world has more pretty-looking, flower-dressed dental practices, it's a win. And
it's a result, especially for florists.
Absolutely. And there's a 10-year-old that won't go feeling scared to a dentist for the rest of his life. So
it's interesting. It's sort of driven, isn't it, by that? The core is the fact of you hated going to the dentist.
Yeah.
And you're all what you try and do is create an enjoyable experience because. As we say on various things, it's not people wake up on a Monday morning and go, yes, I'm going to the dentist today.
It is. But my wife's like, I hate going to get my nails done. I just like how I feel afterwards. Right. So she still goes to get her nails done every 2 weeks. Don't I know it? Right. Yeah. It's but it's that same experience of kind of saying, actually, you know what, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable, but let's make it as nice as you can. Let's have a coffee.
And you'll get a great outcome.
Yeah, that's
Netflix.
Right.
Yeah. And these things don't cost a lot. The thing that costs a lot actually is the service, right? So to put TVs up on a ceiling doesn't cost a lot. Having nice coffees doesn't cost a lot. The biggest cost that we have in our patient journey is service, and it's training our people because in the UK the service sector really has fallen flat, right? I think it's gone everywhere, whether it's Starbucks, whether it's a top end restaurant, you can just see the service levels have deteriorated. So my constant battle is around we need to keep our service levels up. So motivating the team, incentivizing the team to make sure that we are really giving that personal service, and that's probably the most expensive bit because I don't want someone coming to my practice and sat down like that. And we do mystery shoppers all the time, by the way, because we want to make sure that we're constantly evolving our patient journey, and we're not brilliant, by the way, because sometimes on social media everything's all perfect. It's not. I'd say we deliver our patient's journey probably about 70% of the time. Right? It's not good enough. We need to get to 100. So we're constantly striving to get better and better.
But you obviously you must look at lifetime value of client. because that's what service really gives you. Yeah, you get the hits, don't you, where maybe Invisalign or implants, but actually, unless you've actually got the patient coming in.
100%. Well, we don't want the one-off Invisalign deal, so we do a lot of offers. If anyone follows our social media, but what you'll find on our offers, and this is giving away a bit of a nugget, right? Is so you want to come to Tooth Club, and you want £500 off your Invisalign or your composite bonding. We'll give you that, but you have to join the club. So you have to join the membership program. So we're going to get you to leave your last dental practice because you're going to be on a subscription model.
Lifetime value of clients, so important.
Lifetime value. So when they've got a toothache, guess where they come? It's it's hopefully back to us where they've been paying for their plan and they've had a really good patient experience as well. And we try and pitch ourselves so we're not too expensive. I know dental isn't cheap, but we're certainly not going high end, top end, expensive private. We kind of find a nice, but it's certainly not cheap either. There's we know there's people.
You want consistency, don't you? Consistency of revenue. That's a quality revenue stream.
Kunal, you're obviously a really busy guy. What in your personal diary is non-negotiable?
My children. Good. So I'm based in an office right near my son's school. So I drop and pick. So my non-negotiables are really, is that family time. And actually, it's driven by my wife more than me. I have to be honest with you. Right? So actually, I like to drop and pick my son, and that's really quality time that I get with him. But my wife mandates dinner together. And it's something we do in Tooth Club as well, actually. So we have, we sit down for dinner together every night, at least 4 nights in a week. We sit down and have dinner together. But actually in Tooth Club, we have this concept called Fat Fridays, which we're now changing because you're not allowed to use the word fat, right? So as you get bigger, I'm getting all these, we need to change the word fat. So Foodie Friday or something else. But the idea of that is, one lunchtime a month, right? Yeah, we buy lunch. Everyone sits around, and it's that philosophy: families that eat together stay together. And in this challenging world where we're moving so fast, it's hard in my own family life, but it's equally it's hard in my practices because people work part time. We've got this whole Zoom concept now or Teams concept, actually just bringing together, and we don't have an agenda either. So for those Foodie Fridays or Fat Fridays, there's no agenda. Just
call it Fact Friday.
Yeah. So it's all about eating unhealthy food.
Yeah.
Good. We've got to the time where we've got two very serious questions that we need to ask you. The first one is, if you were a fly on the wall in a certain situation, who would be there and what would the situation be?
Right now, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the White House, right? Obviously, I'm in, right? I think, I'd love to see what conversations are going on behind the scenes. He spoke to Putin yesterday. He's had kind of the Prime Minister of Israel in. So I think that would be really interesting to see what's going on in the White House and the craziness of it all, and his McDonald's being delivered for his daily dinner or whatever it is. But just I think that'd be a really interesting place to be right now to see what's going on.
Yeah, I bet
working in his team at the moment,
especially if Elon had popped in.
Yes,
Elon, absolutely.
He's 12 kids. I read just there. He's got 12 children.
Has he?
Yeah, he's got like loads of different various wives. Yeah, it said something like 12 children. I thought, really? Is that right? I was going to have to fact check that.
Wow. I don't know.
But he's got a son called X.
US politics now is having such a play in the UK. And I think, but even in dentistry, right? So I follow a lot of dental clinics in LA, and it's amazing to see the inspo, right? Like, we've got somewhere to go. We've got somewhere to go to get there. And I guess you guys have been out to Orlando, right? So you probably have had more of an insight in it. It's just me on Instagram looking at these really nice celebrity LA clinics.
Yeah. I think you saying about service, I think their whole approach to service and what excellence looks like in the US is very different.
But interestingly enough, unless they're part of a DSO, they don't really understand their finances either.
No.
Right, okay.
It was fascinating. It was really fascinating. We thought they'd all be on it, but they were saying,
not at all.
Unless you're part of a DSO, you really have no idea. They're exactly the same as most dentists here. They make enough money.
Yeah. And that's the one measurement. We make enough money, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's not as much as we used to make.
No. And the follow-up question, Kunal, is if you could meet somebody, who would you like to...
Living or dead?
Yeah.
We always say living or dead.
Yeah, and you can sit down and have a glass or something with them.
Do you know, I'm going to go US again, right? I want to meet Elon Musk, right?
There we go.
The guy is nuts, right?
He is bonkers.
He
He's
is.
absolute bonkers. He's fearless. Like, he just puts things out on X, and he's just
Yeah.
absolutely fearless. Like, the resilience, resilience is amazing to see. And that's the thing. He is nuts. I don't particularly like him. I question the fact that I have a Tesla. Based on some of what I read of him, and I don't think I particularly like him as a character. But whatever you say, he has revolutionized the electric car industry. Like,
Yep.
he really has, and he's made something amazing. He's grown a seriously rich, but it's a great business, and he's able, his business doesn't rely on him. Right, he can go off and go to the White House and do other things, yet the business is still operating as it should.
Yeah.
Right, and so I think he's nuts. So I'd like a day in the life of.
It would be interesting.
Musk, yeah.
You said an interesting thing that I don't particularly like him, but I think that's actually really important. I think from a social media point of view, I think it is important that we do follow people that we don't like.
Yeah.
Because I think the danger is otherwise we just tune in
All of the same
views, thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think listening to people who we don't like or we don't share the views with is actually quite good. It's important to get balance, because it doesn't mean because we follow them we like them. And I think there's a misunderstanding that because you follow somebody you like them. I think you can follow people you don't like but still learn from them.
And so, as an example, I follow Nigel Farage, right, in the Reform Party, right? And I always have this thing, is there a little bit of racism in there? I can't really vote for Reform because is there a little bit of racism? But, if you put that to a side, some of the stuff that he's saying, right, is, I think, what people are thinking.
Some of the policies are not that bonkers.
Yeah. And, and it's not PC, and it's not middle ground, but there is an opinion, and I think absolutely right. We have to listen to the things that we don't want to listen to.
Yeah.
To have a true reality.
Yeah.
Reality.
If only to reinforce the things that are important to us. Yeah, you listen to the other side. At least it gives balance. But I think just tuning that out and not having it across your timeline, I think that's arguably more dangerous.
Emperor's New Clothes.
It is.
Yeah.
Kunal, it's been an absolute joy.
Yeah,
It's been fabulous. It's been a very, very enjoyable conversation. We could talk for hours.
I've loved it. Thank you.
But we can't. No, thank you very much. All the best with continuing to grow Tooth Club. I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more from you and your beautiful pink flowers and your pink practices around the place.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Look after yourself. Cheers.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Andy.
Kunal.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.